very honored to have you, Miss Vishantini, as our speaker for today's session, which is interview session with professionals and students. So, a little bit about yourself first before we start our questions.
Okay, so very good evening, Miss Lavanya. Thank you for having me in your show. This is on a bridging the gap between student and what working environment,
Yeah,
right?
correct.
So it's actually a very good show, if you ask me.
Okay.
uh, it's much needed nowadays. And a bit about myself. So my name is Vishantini Tangavelu. Can address me as Visha. So I'm a senior product development engineer. So basically, my background is by nature, I'm a chemical engineer.
Okay.
So researcher by background in oil and gas industry. I've been working for the past 5.5 years, specialized in oil and gas industry as well as polymer industry. So for the first, after right, I graduated from University Technology of Petronas.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started working in Top Glove for 2 years. And then I jumped into oil and gas industry. So then I'm in with Synergy Oil and Gas Engineering now.
Okay.
So now I'm like leading the department
Mm-hmm.
for innovation, for
Mm-hmm.
research, new product development,
Mm-hmm.
and also on the research management side itself. And yes, so that's pretty much about me.
Okay. Yeah, but I also realized that you have started your own podcast. You want to talk about that a little bit?
So yes, my podcast is regarding more on interviewing on innovators to have in my channel in my podcast. Yeah, so I wanted to have innovators from across any industry, not only limited to oil and gas industries.
Okay.
So I wanted those innovators to talk more on their journey in commercializing their products. So it's again back to what you're actually doing. So I also want to bridge the gap between academic research and also on the industrial research itself. It's actually
Okay.
a very huge gap in between
Mm-hmm.
industrial and also academic research.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to educate those academic research, like how are you going to commercialize your product, learning from the industrialist researcher themselves, because the aspect that we're looking at, it's two different objective end of the day if you look. But end of they're developing a product, but academic very hard for them to commercialize the product. But in
Mm-hmm.
business aspect, you must, right, you like it or not, by hook or crook, you must commercialize your product because you
Yeah.
have invested so much on your
Mm.
resources and everything. So you must. So I would want those innovators from the research industry research to speak on their journey or
Okay.
sharing or pitching about their products and
Mm-hmm.
how to choose the right product actually. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
bit on my design thinking as well, because always been I've been doing I'm a trainer in design thinking. So it's a bit touch up on design thinking and also how to commercialize their journey itself. So that will be educating the rest of the researchers out there.
That's a very nice initiative, Miss Shantini. Okay. Do you have
Thank
anything
you.
else to say? Or we can start straight away with our.
So yeah, for my research, right, for my podcast, so it's called the Innovators Minutes, also
Okay.
an acronym as Time.
Okay.
So it will be because I just started and ventured into this. So I have few interviews in line coming up.
Okay.
So I have like interviewed so far one people.
Okay.
So I so if to know more on this, so I would ask anyone else to know more on innovators' journey in commercializing their product.
Okay.
So do subscribe to my channel, the Innovators Minutes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Sure. Okay. I think we would start with the questions itself. So our very first question for today's session gonna be: is there a gap between what you study and what you apply at work?
Definitely, there's a huge gap.
Okay.
Not like literally, like, I would not take it so literally. Like there is a huge gap. No, of
Mm-hmm.
course, the theory part you can't run from it. You do apply those theory into because what you are working on it's more on the practical side. But of
Mm-hmm.
course, you need a theory as basis to run your practical. But what I'm trying to say in my case is on research side,
Mm-hmm.
it's I find it there's a huge gap because what academicians trying to develop in their research, they are not able to commercialize. I would say very 20 or 30% only able to be commercialized. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
of course, you need like grants and everything supports in terms of financial, which there is an abundance of resources for that.
Okay.
But on top of that, the product itself don't it's not feasible yet, or it's not ready yet to
Mm.
bring into the market. So there's something that there's lacking there. Why is not still feasible or viable to bring into the market? So but in industry there's no such thing. You don't do small scale or small parameters of research, right? You always do a large scale of research, and then you must to be able to commercialize. But in
Mm.
academic, no, not all the products or not all the research are being commercialized. So there is something, a huge gap for me in that. In my context of my research field, yes, there is a
Yes.
gap.
Okay. So I think this would lead to our second question, which is what would be your advice for students who are in your field to bridge the gap?
So for me is that what is lacking is, I believe, or I think, in my personal opinion, it might be wrong, it might be, I'm not so sure about this, but it's just in my opinion. I would say that what is lacking is on the context of the business management itself, I would say. So
Mm-hmm.
there's something lacking in academic wise when people are doing research, they don't take into consideration of the business aspect and also a bit on the market research. They don't look into the market capacity or the customer capacity itself. That context is lacking when
Mm-hmm.
they're developing a product. So when you're doing a research, yes, they're trying to solve a problem. Of course, you are meeting the objective, solving a problem. But end of the day, whether it's being able to be commercialized is another question. So
Mm.
I feel that there's something missing, which is on the business management, and also which includes on the market research and the customer journey itself. So I think these are the things that students have to look into. So I know there are minor studies, minor subjects being offered in universities where they can do business management and everything,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just being offered. Like for engineering, it's just the minor subjects being offered, and not everyone it's a must to take. But I
Mm.
would suggest that I think it should be one of the criteria that one should have, especially on finance and so on business. I
Mm.
think that would actually solve a lot of problems, if you ask me, because end of the day everything is going to be monetized. So you
Yeah.
need to know how to manage your business. You need to know how to do your financing, like what
Mm.
you're doing on accounting and everything. I think those
Yeah.
are very important skills that, regardless you are an engineer or a doctor or any other fields for the matter, you need to have this basic requirement of knowledge on this, and then I think you solve a lot of problems there.
Yeah, so it's like a life skill for them. It's not just because they are
Yeah.
studying and things like that. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. I would say it's a requirement.
Okay. So I think it will lead to another question. Okay, I think this is quite interesting. You will be going back towards your school days. If you have given a chance to go back to school, which subject would you be full-heartedly studying beyond the books?
Beyond the books. Okay.
Yeah.
I definitely would not go opt for my engineering, because there's something that you can't avoid. So
Okay.
I would say that I had this minor subject called programming, the C++ programming subject. That wasn't a requirement for us. I mean, it was just a pass, fail or pass kind of
Mm.
requirement. It wasn't in my syllabus. Because I'm chemical engineer. So if unless I'm software or IT background, then that's a
Mm.
basic that's the main requirement, right? So I felt that I did not give much importance of programming. But in looking at the world that's moving now, right? AI, big data, machine learning, it's all about all this programming. So
Mm.
I felt a bit regret, like why didn't I give a bit of importance on programming subject? Because let's say I'm doing any, even now when I'm developing some products,
Mhm.
and when it's related to back to AI, robotics, and all these sort of things, I have to outsource people to do that. At
Mm.
least the basic stuff. If I know able to do it, some simple programming, I
Mm.
could have not outsourced. I'd have done a very simple prototype at least, right? Which I was not able to do it. I was like, I had to outsource just for a very
Yeah.
simple programming source. So I think I would have gone a lot, because now programming, it's pretty easy. Not to say it's easy. No, it's not. What
Okay.
I'm trying to say is that it's easily accessible. A
Mm.
lot of people are having YouTubes, they're learning, and a lot of free courses online and all, right? So a lot of people are actually doing courses on this programming. So I think I should have put some effort even then when they're offering subjects in my university. I should have put some effort. I was just doing fulfill the requirement to pass, and that's to it.
Yeah,
But
actually, all
I'm
the
telling
students
you,
do that.
yeah,
Mhm.
programming is something you need to have a passion to it, because it's not easy. The
Mm.
language totally different than what you're actually writing and all, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unless you have a passion to it, then it's a different story. But I
Yeah.
think the world is actually leading to that. You
Mm.
need to have those basic requirements because we all are going to digitalizations,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I think, like it or not, I think it's good for a fresh graduates to have these skills. If you ask me, even
Mm.
I would suggest anyone to take up this subject. There's a lot of free course
Yeah.
learning, this
Mm.
Coursera, even LinkedIn Learning. They
Yeah.
have all the subjects, right? I think they should do this. If let's say their course did not offer this basic programming courses, they should take up. I think it's 2 3 months courses. If you know the basic, I think you can do wonders in so many things.
Yeah.
Like food apps and all, a lot of apps related, right? I think now whatever courses they're offering, they actually can develop the app itself already nowadays. That kind of advanced is the courses they're
Mm.
offering. So I think there's something that I regret of not going thoroughly, and I should
Okay.
have grabbed my opportunity back then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that part, Miss Vishantini. Okay, now we go to the next one. I think this is also a bit interesting question. How do we be creative at our work or job when our job itself very mundane and monotonous?
Okay. So
Yeah.
if you ask me personally, my job is not like that
Okay.
because yeah, I'm already in the research, right? I'm not doing routines. So
Yeah.
I have like let's say I'm running few research on the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So I have different skill set that I have to focus on at a different point of time. What I do is normally is that of course even though you're running repetitive testings,
Mm.
prototypes and everything, then you do get bored and everything. But what I try to do is that I try to diversify my job scope itself. Now that I have that chances to throw up some ideas to my management and everything, so I'll tell why not we run workshop to do some ideation workshop, or why
Mm-hmm.
not let's have some collaborative efforts with universities. I
Yeah.
always will come up with this kind of ideas. So I think anyone who able to come up with ideas, like if they can do out of their job scope, or even if you ask me for as simple as um, organizing an event in your company, that would
Yeah.
actually also be a creative way of doing things. Why not just take up? I know now that we can't do with pandemic and everything,
Yeah.
but I saw this one of the company how they celebrated Chinese New Year virtually. They
Mm.
all had this they all had a Zoom meeting,
The,
and then they all had this background with
yeah,
Chinese New Year,
virtual background. Yeah.
the virtual background.
Yeah.
Everyone had the same background and all wear the red baju and everything
Yeah.
attire. So they celebrated. I think this is one way of doing it. Even though yes, we have obstacles and we can't do it
Mm-hmm.
physically and present.
Mm-hmm.
I think why not organize that? So you just go out of the scope of your job, and then I think you try to initiate something to organize something. That
Mm-hmm.
would be good. And it not necessarily you have to depend on your HR to do it all the time to
Yeah.
organize events, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why not do it for your department? Why not do it for engineers? Or why not you go suggest that to your HR?
Mm-hmm.
So that will be a bit out of your job scope. So I think there is a lot of ways that you can actually be creative in your job,
Mm-hmm.
because some things you can't run. Routines are routines. Some things you
Yeah.
can't run out of it,
Mm-hmm.
because if you're in a manufacturing plant, these are the things
Yeah.
that you cannot avoid. You want to check on your maintenance, you got to check. You can't run out of it, right? But you
Mm-hmm.
can do so many other things like workshops, trainings. If you're capable of doing it, then just run. I mean, suggest your management and do it, which I think I always will do that, because I rather than meeting the same person, I rather have some collaboration meeting with universities, because they are also very engaging people, universities
Mm-hmm.
people.
Mm-hmm.
You just tell them that we want to have like an engagement section. They are more than willing to do it with you. So
Yeah.
you have a different inputs and everything, rather than always googling and everything. Academicians are they have a lot of knowledge because they do a lot of research, readings and all, right, compared to us, very straight to the point, business
Yeah.
kind of point of view.
Correct.
They have a lot of other knowledge, so it's good to have engagement sections and all. So I think there's a lot of ways you can actually come up with.
Okay, that's a very good idea. Okay, next one is what are your views for our current education system and what are the few measures that you are taking for the betterment of education for students itself as a general
Okay.
one? Yeah.
General one, because I don't know what's happening now education in Malaysia.
Okay, it's
If you
okay.
ask me, in primary and secondary, it's all haywire, because I have my nieces and nephews that I do get updates from them, but every single time I feel like they keep changing.
Changing.
You know,
Mhm.
I just feel bad for my niece and nephews, because it kept changing like because they didn't have PT3 last year, and then now two of
Yeah.
my nieces are form 4 this year. They don't have art stream and science stream. It's just based on their classes results, so it's all such a lot of mixed up here and there. And even standard one, they have changed a bit on their education system.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit like no more homeworks, and they have more on
Mm-hmm.
online learning kind
Online,
of thing.
yeah.
So it's a bit,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a bit different now. So if you ask me to comment on that, I really have no much opinion on that. If you ask me,
Okay.
because nothing is so stabilized on the education
Okay.
system itself for
Mm-hmm.
primary and secondary.
Mm-hmm.
But if you ask me on the university level, I
Yeah.
think they're doing a pretty good job. A lot of subjects are being offered and everything. It's just met how you actually choosing your minors and your majors and everything.
Okay.
So I feel those side on the tertiary education, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's fair enough.
Okay.
So what I'm actually trying to do and how I'm contributing in terms of that is, to be frank, nothing much at the moment, nothing much on the
Okay.
student aspect itself,
Mm-hmm.
but it's more on bridging the gap. So I did not contribute much going back to students and everything
Mm-hmm.
on the education system itself. I've
Mm-hmm.
not done much contribution on that, to be honest.
Okay.
But what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to engage more on the lecturers where they can also, what we try to do when I'm engaged with the universities.
Mm-hmm.
So what they're trying to say when I pick up, I throw some problem statement to them. Can you all help me to do this?
Mm-hmm.
So those they will give these topics to their masters or FIP students.
Mm-hmm.
So when the FIP students are reporting to me also indirectly, because they're reporting to their supervisors in the universities and
Mm-hmm.
also to me. So in that sense, I'm trying to educate back to those FIP students because they are like final year students. Anytime they will be graduating soon and
Yeah.
coming to the
Mm-hmm.
real working life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So on that aspect, I try to tell them, you got to do this. This is how you got to do your research. Don't skip this part, and you got to do this. So
Mm-hmm.
I will get them prepared. So that's one way I'm actually contributing to the FIP students. So when I was in Top Glove, I think I've monitored about 4 FIP students from
Mm-hmm.
UCSI,
Mm-hmm.
and currently I'm monitoring 1 student from UTM.
Okay.
So in that way, I'm actually trying to do something, trying to deliver
Bridge
some
the
input
gap.
to those
Yeah.
FIP students. Yeah, so at least they know they are prepared. So when they come to do research, if they are in the same field, if they choose to
Mm-hmm.
be in the same field once they graduated, then they
Mm-hmm.
know what they're supposed to do, what is lacking in academic,
Mm-hmm.
and what you actually need to focus in industry. So I think in that way, I'm actually contributing a little, I think.
Yeah, you are already contributing, Mrs. Shantini, because not
Yeah.
many people are not actually giving importance towards that bridge actually, because everyone says okay, study, then you go into work, after that you learn. But what's lacking here is the time when you're studying. Actually, you spend not like the whole day you will be studying. So when you allocate your time, like okay, you study maybe for few hours, and then you try to talk to someone, or get someone from the industry itself to actually see how this particular topic or subject matter is actually being done in the workplace. So if everyone thinks, students thinks in that way, I think then we can bridge the gap very easily. So yeah, thank you
Correct.
so much for
But
that.
this
Mm.
You're welcome. But there's another advantage, like for example, yes, normally breaching this gap will come in during internship period,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
So that's actually when students will learn how the real working environment will look like, what are expectations. But what I also felt that most of the universities and colleges in Malaysia, they have very limited time. They probably have 10 to 12 weeks. That's the standard, if you
Yeah,
ask me,
yeah,
10 to
correct.
12 weeks. But back in UTP, they
Mm.
actually have 8 months of internship. It's 2 semesters of internship. I would say
Wow.
that's the longest internship. So it's different. If it's different, if you look at UTP students' mindset,
Mm.
if you notice, because we
Mhm.
have the longest internship, so we actually have an overall look at how this internship or the real working life is, because we have
Mm.
such a long period. 8 months is sufficient. Even normal working environment probation period 6 months up,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
learn a lot of things.
Mm.
Imagine you going internship for 8 months, two
Mm.
semesters. You learn a lot of things, and we are required to carry up one project for sure. So we
Mm.
need to take up one project. It's under our responsibility fully, and we got to present it and develop into something by end of the day when we're leaving the company.
Mm.
So it's already get us ready to embark or face the real world outside. So I felt that only UTP has this longest period of internship. Whatever
Mm-hmm.
gap you're saying, right? I think we are already experiencing that, which other universities are not. It, of course, universities are good. I'm not saying anything on that. What
Yeah.
I'm trying to say is that the period of the internship,
Mm-hmm.
maybe if they could prolong it, they will get a better picture. If you ask me.
Mm, yeah. So the last question is share with us your one mistake that you made when you were a student, which the adult you, which means the adult you now, want to change at that point of time.
Okay. So, student as in anytime, right? Could be even my
I think
secondary or
college. I think college is better, so you can relate it much more easier.
so on
Yeah.
college. There's nothing much that I regret on college because I regret a lot of things doing that I did not do it in secondary. I did
Okay.
not grab opportunities in my secondary schools, like
Mm-hmm.
entering forums or debates or all these sort of things.
Mm-hmm.
But I make sure that I don't repeat the mistake in my tertiary because by the time I'm tertiary, I've already learned my mistake. Like I
Okay.
grab all any opportunities coming along the way
Mm-hmm.
because like I have so much of passion and research and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Being in a basis of structured curriculums, right? Research will come in during your FIPs and during your internships or your FIPs after third or fourth year. So most likely that's when you actually have, because you have learned all the theories by the time then
Mm-hmm.
you're able to apply it. But what I did was, even the second year itself, I came out with some ideas and I wanted to go and present and get into
Mm-hmm.
competitions and everything. I didn't want to miss out anything. So
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I wouldn't say that I have any regrets in my tertiary education,
Okay.
but yes, in my secondary, I had a lot of regrets of not participating. I didn't have the courage to go and try.
Mm.
But I came to universities level. No, I never give it a chance. I organized a lot of things. I joined in. I was emceeing. I
Mm.
was joining a lot of competitions, even in the first or second year itself. I gave
Okay.
myself a time for my first year, but second year onwards, I was just participating in a lot of competitions and
Mm-hmm.
enhancing my soft skills and everything. So, but I would advise that to anyone out there that
Mm-hmm.
universities is a time that you have a lot of opportunities. Grab that time because a
Mm.
lot of competitions and a lot of soft skills that you can enhance during that time. Don't be quiet. And yes, it's important for you to graduate. You need to fulfill certain requirements and your CGPs and everything. It's fine, fair enough. But also try to invest some portion on your soft skills and other activities, on your leaderships. So that will be very helpful on your career life. So I would say that no regrets during my student time,
Okay.
during my tertiary education. I
Mm-hmm.
would say that I grab all the opportunities as much as possible.
Yeah, that's very nice. Because I think if mine is, I was a very quiet student. I was a very, very quiet student during my tertiary education. Secondary, pretty much okay, I would say. But in tertiary, I become much more quieter. So more towards exams and assignments and this the thing. So when I came out, that's when I actually realized I made the biggest mistake of my life. So when I come out, I actually out when you're out from college, it's much more bigger world, the working reality, and also you have a lot more. So I participate in everything. Like after that, I participate in everything. Like many different companies, organizers, and then different organizations started organizing things. So I just participate and then take up the skills and things like that. So I think a little bit of a different experience. I learned the lesson in my tertiary, and so that in working, I just want to grab everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. So I like how I learned in secondary. I didn't want to repeat it in my tertiary education.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But in working life, it was a bit challenging in the beginning because you need to know about your environment, you need to know your
Mm.
bosses, you need to know
Mm.
your management. You got
Mm.
to study a bit. Give it yourself 6 months time,
Yeah.
and then okay, then you know what to do and everything. You cannot overdo things, and you
Mm-hmm.
cannot over promise also. So you got to
Mm.
like balance it up here and there. So it takes up time. So I think it's given a time, and then I think everyone will do well.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mrs. Chantini, for your time. And that's all we have for today. So I hope we will meet you very soon in maybe another session. Till then, thank you
And
so much. Bye bye.